Can't get no air.
Hey all, my name is Shay Jose, and today I'll be giving you a quick breakdown of my latest project, No Air, which was actually released on my label, FTFT Records. The track is a melodic house, melodic techno track inspired by the likes of Adriatic, Artbat, and a few of the other artists that are actually going around at the moment playing a lot of that genre. So without further ado, let's dive into the project and let's see how it was put together. So what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of a listen on the project itself, and then from there we'll break the track down. Teaser on this track. So I made this track about a year ago actually, when the pandemic kind of started, and I collaborated on this track with an English singer by the name of Coulson. So Luke and I went back and forth over a couple of weeks to basically work out the idea. I had a piano riff and pretty much the track was, I would say, about 80% done. And I sent it to Luke and he came back with a really cool top line, the Can't Get No Air top line. And basically over the next couple of weeks, the idea developed. And throughout the year, actually, I made a lot of tweaks to this track, trying to really balance it correctly until I came up with something that I was happy with. So if we were to break down the track, just for full disclosure, I usually bounce everything out to audio at a certain point. I just find that, well, for starters, there's a lot less CPU usage, but also I tend to find that once I commit a sound to audio, I tend to stop going back and actually tweaking things as much as possible, which lets me actually concentrate a lot more on the mixing components of the song rather than the producing components of the song, if that makes sense. All right, so let's get started. So the first part of this track is really broken up into, I guess, the main elements, which is the kick, the sub, and the bass at the low end. So what I usually do is I tend to bus a couple of the instruments together, your arps, your snares, your percussion, that sort of stuff. On this particular track, though, I did separate the kick. I usually separate also the sub bass from the bass itself, and I'll go into that a little bit later on. But I'm probably getting a bit sidetracked here, so let's go back to the kick. So this particular kick layer was just to solo this. It is really just two kicks. We've got two kick samples actually from Production Music Live. I've got one kick which has a little bit more body to it, and the other kick which has a little bit more thump to it, so it's a little bit longer. As you can see here, they've actually been EQ'd differently, so you get more of the thump of the first kick, and you can see this one here, there's actually no EQ here. but on this other one, you actually get a little bit more. As you can see, there's nothing there. More of the body. That's just so I can actually get the right balance between the click of one kick and the body or the meat of the secondary kick. We're actually running this through a compression chain and an auto filter that I use to basically automate the I guess the kick fading in and out at certain points within the track. We've got a volume shaper there. I've recently just bought a shaper box as well, which is the version up from this one, just so I can shape the kick the way I want it. So if we move on to the next part, so I'll let you hear what that kick kind of sounds like by itself. It's quite a thumpy kick, as you can hear. It's hitting right there at about 50 hertz. So it's got quite a lot of body to it, quite a lot of thump, which I really liked actually on this particular kick. Moving on, let's break down the sub. So this sub is actually made up of two synthesizers. We've got an operator and an analog. I can't really remember why I used two, but all I do remember is that it actually sounded quite cool with both of them mixed in together. It's almost like it gave it a little bit of a Reese bass style feel by having them mixed in together. We've got some saturation going there on the chain, and we've got a utility. And obviously, there's one quick tip: always set your sub to mono, especially on dance music. You don't want that sub flapping all over the place in the stereo field. So your kick and your sub should always be in mono. I usually tend to roll off everything underneath 200 hertz into mono anyways. I may do that in the individual stems, or I may actually do it also within the master chain. So, but I think on this one, yeah, I literally just did it on the actual on the bus itself. So moving on, the bass or the high bass that you can hear here, over here. As you can hear, it's actually quite stereo. Excuse me. It's actually quite stereo as well. But what I have done is I've actually rolled off a lot of the frequencies where the sub would be. That's basically just to allow the sub to take up that space in the frequency range and allow this top sub to be a little bit more open without actually, stuffing up the lower frequency range. As you can see here, it's actually been rolled off. The sides have been rolled off quite severely at about 100 hertz and 150. And I've rolled off some of the highs as well. We've got a compressor. We've got a glue compressor. As you can see, there's actually 3 layers there. Actually, it's actually more layers. We've got one layer which has a Sylenth, a Serum, and another Sylenth. Another one with a Serum and a Sylenth, and a Massive. So each one of those layers actually gets a little bit more character, and I've actually EQ'd them differently each time, as you can see from the bottom here. We've got some OTT just to push those harmonics out a little bit, and an echo which kind of gives it that delay effect as well on the higher frequency ranges. Usually use the auto filter quite a lot on most of my stems. It's just basically to roll things off before a drop, with some reverb and washout effect as well. So yeah, as you can see, this is here right on the last plugin on the chain. Snare and clap, pretty standard, nothing great nothing major to discuss here. Just a single sample, some EQ rolled off just to make sure that we're leaving the lower frequency range quite free for the sub, the bass, and the kick to live in. Now, the supporting lead. This is actually two layers. We've got an analog layer over here, and then we've got like a clacking sound that came from Spire. Basically what this does is it gives the sound a little bit of a click to cut through the mix a little bit better. I was finding when I was using the analog sound, it just wasn't cutting through the mix enough. So by adding this kind of clacking sound, it really helps it. So I'll let you listen to it with and without. So this is just the analog by itself. I mean, by itself it sounds great, but in the context of the mix, it sounded pretty bad. I just couldn't hear it. So what I did is I added this noise underneath it and EQ'd it out in certain frequencies to actually give the entire stem a little bit more body to cut through the mix. So this is what this clacking sound, I guess, sounds like. As you can see, it's got a little bit of reverb. It's got a little bit more bite to it. But if I was to play it in the context of the mix, I'll just solo this channel here so you can hear it. I mean, it sounds okay, but I really can't hear it cutting through the mix. I'm not sure if you can hear it well. You might need to put the headphones on or not. But when you add it, you really hear this supporting lead really cut through the mix. So this is with it on. So that really cuts through on the upper ranges of the frequency. It just really helped it cut through the mix. Moving on, we got a drone noise and some pads. Nothing too crazy here. Which was made with pigments and some white noise. Probably a bit boring, nothing to go through there. The ARP, which actually makes up another component of the track. I've actually divided this into, there's actually 1, 2, 3, there's 4 ARPs in total, which actually bring in different places throughout the song. So one of the key things in your arrangement is you want to introduce things slowly, maybe every 4 to 8 bars. You don't want to give away all your elements off at once. You want to take away elements, bring some elements in just to keep the listener entertained. So during the intro of the track, we're basically only playing this 2 VSTs here. So we've got 2 pigments running. This is the first one, which I think this was just a noise from memory. It's just a square wave, really boring. And then this one down the bottom. As you can see there, it's actually EQ'd quite hard as well. This is only so we make more space in the frequency ranges, for the rest of the samples and the rest of the, I guess, patches that I've decided to use in there. Now, if we were to move this particular, if we were to move a little bit further down, maybe around the break, you can actually hear the other ARPs coming in. So this is the first one, which is, what was this one? This was a Diva. It was actually done with Diva. It's got quite a lot of processing on there. It's got a Valhalla reverb, some delay, some reverb, some more reverb, some chorus, OTT, some compression, some more EQ, and another glue compressor. And then the last one is just a June, which has got absolutely nothing on it. So come to show you how much, little increments of sound or little increments of different patches can actually make an entire, like a boring sound a lot better. So I'll let you hear this re-up first. And as you can hear, these actually push back in the mix quite a lot. And that was done on purpose to actually just, I guess, make it sound a little bit further back in the mix compared to the other synths that were sitting in front of it. And the June synth at the bottom here. It's actually playing an octave higher from memory to actually just fill out the rest of the frequency range. So if we play them all together, you kind of get this effect. One thing you can do as well, which I think I did with this re-arp, is you can actually sidechain the delay to its original source, which means it will allow the patch, will allow the synthesizer to come in dry and have a tail afterwards with a delay, which means it keeps your mix a lot cleaner. It doesn't muddy up the mix, especially when you're mixing down. The other thing to note is try and keep all your reverb times the same. So if you're using quarter note reverb times, keep them all the same across your synthesizers where possible. Otherwise, use an 1/8 or a 16th based on the BPM of the song. A good way to do this is actually to use return tracks and actually send, your different stems or your different bus channels out to a return track. So then that way you can bus everything out to one single reverb rather than have multiple ones. So it's just by choice, depending on how you want to do it. You keep moving down. We got a low pad there. Nothing too crazy. Another Diva and a Serum stacked on top of each other. The piano. This is actually how the song came about to start off with. The piano was the main riff, which I wrote. Now, I can't play the piano for shit, so just word of warning. I can come up with some tunes and put a basic structure together, but I can't read music. I know some chords, but that's about it. But I came out with this riff. It actually probably looks more complicated than it actually is. It's actually quite simple. And decided to lay this down. So I'll let you hear what that sounds like. As you can hear, there's actually a reverse piano that's in there. What I did is I basically just recorded this grand piano stem and put a long tail at the end of each one of the chords. I reversed that and then put it at the front. So you kind of get like this swooshing sound each time a new chord is going to be hit, which I think actually gives it a lot more atmosphere in that breakdown. So let you hear it again. There you go. Well, move on. Sweeps and effects. Look, I probably won't cover this. It's pretty straightforward. I try not to use white noise as much as possible now. I'm doing a lot of the effects now by recreating them myself. Could be recording the original, one of the original leads, putting a lot of reverb in there, using something like crystallizer on it, and reversing those effects. I tend to find that actually works a lot better. It actually takes your productions up to, I guess, the next level. There's nothing worse than hearing white noise effects everywhere in a song. I mean, that's kind of been done and overkilled already. So it's just one of the ways to, to spice up your production. So, I mean, if you want me to cover it, leave me a comment below and I can do a more in-depth video of actually how to add some ear candy to your productions. Moving on, the percussion bus really is just a bunch of hats, a lot of 16th notes, some chorus on some of them, some reverb on some of them, erosion as well to actually give it a little bit more bite every now and then, and some delay. Nothing too crazy. We're running a drum bus and an LFO as well in there, so make sure it's ducking out of the way of the kick. And some fresh air. Now, I love this plugin. It's, I don't know, it's some sort of voodoo plugin that's like Digital has actually put together, but really gives some nice air without making everything sound too tinny or too harsh. So I'm using that there. Now, the lead. This is probably what gave me the most pain throughout the entire production. Now, I've actually bounced the lead out to... Have I bounced it out? Oh, no, okay, I still got the media here. I bounced it out to audio, but what originally happened was this particular lead was done in Sylenth, and it's got a lot of processing on it. Some EQ, some phaser, chorus, saturation, another saturator, delay, compressor, OTT, reverb, and God knows what else. There's like 3 layers to it, just EQ'd a little bit differently every now and then. But what I ended up finding was that even I was trying to get a lead that kind of sounded forward in the mix, but had a lot of reverb and a lot of filled up a lot of the frequency range without mudding up the mix. And that was really hard to do. What I ended up doing was actually bouncing a dry version of this lead and running that through a parallel saturation and reverb, and then mixing it back in with the original dry signal. So it's actually the stem running twice with a wet stem and a dry stem mixed in together to kind of give you that I guess vibe. So if we hear what the original stem sounds like, I'll probably just go on the breakdown here. As you can hear, that's got a lot of bite in there. It's got a lot of LFO tool. It's got a saturator. It's got a soft reducer. So I'm using a gate here to actually duck the tail of it, so the reverb kind of cuts off before the next note kind of hits as well. We're running an echo, and as you can see, where'd it go? Here we go. As you can see, I'm running the compressor back into itself, into the dry signal. So what it's doing, it's actually ducking the echo or tail every single time the dry signal hits. So if I was to play this, as you can see, it's actually allowing the dry signal to cut through. Now, if I was to turn off this sidechain, you're probably going to hear it all over the place. You can hear that it's actually the echo and I guess the noise, it's actually taking up a lot more of the frequency range, so it's kind of sounding really muddy. Further down, we had the same lead, just processed a little bit differently. So we've got this sound here, which is heavily compressed, and there's a lot of reverb coming out of it. Then we had another layer, and this was done, I think, in Sylenth. Yep, Sylenth as well. So as you can hear, this one is also really compressed. I wanted it to sound really squashed, really dirty with that, with the reverb and the compressor and the echo that was running out of it. And then the last one, I believe, is exactly the same, but EQ'd a little bit differently. So this particular one has a lot more bite. The tail of the reverb actually hits a lot later. But together they sounded pretty crap. So what I did is I actually bounced all the layers dry, added some further effects to it, and then mixed the bounced version with the effects I added to the original stem, which already had some processing. So if you play it all together, you can hear that lead, it just smashes you in the face. It's like right at the front, but it actually has a lot of the body, a lot of the reverb, a lot of the echoes actually taking up a lot of space within the mix without making the entire mix sound muddy. So that's basically it. I won't delve too much more into it. Like I said, I usually bounce out a lot of my productions out onto audio, which I then look at mixing in a later in another project. Even the vocals here from Luke, I think I only ended up putting some slight EQ, some Arvox, some more EQ, and a glue compressor. I usually spend a lot of time comping vocals in another project. I mean, I'll get the dry stems, I'll go through all the takes, pick out the parts I want, compress them, equalize them, and then usually bounce out a single stem like I did here. And Luke's got a great voice, and he's actually a really good producer, so working on his stuff is always really easy because he really does about half the work for me already. And one thing I'll say is you can't fix a shit recording. If your singer does not record a part well, you're not going to be able to fix it in post-production. Get them to resend you the part again. If they know what they're doing, they're usually going to be able to, comp their own vocals as well and get some good takes. Like I said, I've been really lucky. Luke knows exactly what he's doing. He's quite a good producer. He knows his voice. And he sent me a great take to start off with. But I'll let you hear what his voice sounds like soloed.
Sail for the water, see how far you flow.
I don't have it in this project. Like I said, I've got a separate vocal arrangement project that I did just for the vocal processing. But from memory, what I did there is I broke it up into having things like little altar boy, running a couple of semitones underneath, some chorus, and it just, the vocal sounded really full at that point, and I mean some repeat delay in there that you can hear in the background. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. It's just a quick breakdown of my track Nowhere. Like I said, it's out now. We've got some great support from the likes of like Paul Oakenfold, Rehab, Kashmir, Will Sparks, Dubfire. I mean, the list goes on, so it's doing really well. If you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'll try to get to it over the next couple of weeks, and if there's any particular part you want me to concentrate a little bit more on, just let me know and I might do a separate video. So yeah, until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.